The rain came down hard that night, drumming against the windshield like angry fingers. Chitty sat low in his car, eyes locked on the black sedan 3 vehicles ahead. Inside that car was Emeka, the man who would marry his sister tomorrow. But tonight, Chitty wasn't thinking about wedding bells. He was thinking about betrayal. His phone was already recording. The red dot blinked in the darkness like a warning light. He had promised his sister Adiz that he would protect her. Their father was gone. Their mother lived far away in the village. That left only him to stand guard over her heart. Emeka's car turned left, away from his apartment. Away from where he should be resting before the biggest day of his life. Chitty's jaw tightened. He followed, keeping 2 cars between them just like he'd seen in movies. The city lights blurred through the rain. Neon signs reflected in puddles. Chitty's heart pounded. He didn't want to be right. But he needed to know the truth. If Emeka was hiding something, tomorrow would be too late. The wedding would happen. His sister would be trapped. If there's dirt, Chitty whispered to himself, I'll find it. Emeka's car slowed near the private clinic district. The buildings here were clean but quiet, the kind of place where people came for secrets. Chitty's stomach twisted. He parked across the street, engine off, wipers still. Through the rain, he watched Emeka step out, pulling his jacket over his head. A side door opened. A nurse appeared under a flickering security light, her uniform crisp white against the wet darkness. Emeka reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick brown envelope. Even from this distance, Chitty could see it was stuffed full. Money. A lot of it. The nurse took it carefully like it was fragile. She leaned close and Chitty strained to hear, but the rain swallowed their words. Then, just barely through his cracked window, he caught it. This clears the balance, the nurse whispered. She can stand tomorrow. Emeka nodded once, glanced around nervously, then hurried back to his car. The nurse disappeared inside, locking the door behind her. Chitty's hand trembled as he held his phone higher, zooming in. Who was this woman Emeka was paying for? Why was it secret? Why tonight, hours before the wedding? His mind raced with dark possibilities. Another woman. A sick girlfriend. A hidden child. She who? Chitty muttered, his breath fogging the glass. Emeka didn't go home. Instead, he drove deeper into the old part of town, where the roads were narrow and the streetlights flickered. Chitty followed, his unease growing with every turn. This wasn't the neighborhood of a man preparing for a grand wedding. This was the kind of place people went when they didn't want to be seen. Emeka parked in front of a faded apartment building. The paint was peeling. The stairwell was dim. Chitty waited until Emeka disappeared inside, then followed on foot, keeping his distance. His shoes splashed through shallow puddles. His phone was still recording. He climbed to the 3rd floor, breathing hard. Ahead, Emeka stood at a door, knocking softly. It opened and a woman appeared. She was middle-aged, thin, with tired eyes and a worn wrapper tied around her waist. She looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. When she saw Emeka, her face lit up. She reached out and touched his cheek, her voice trembling with emotion. God bless you, my son, she said, pulling him into a hug. Chitty's heart sank. My son. The words echoed in his head. This wasn't just a woman. This was someone who called Emeka her son. Was this his mother? But Emeka's mother lived in Enugu. Chitty had met her. So who was this woman? Emeka stayed inside for 20 minutes. Chitty crouched in the stairwell, phone aimed at the door, recording every second. When Emeka finally left, the woman stood in the doorway, watching him go with wet eyes. She waved slowly like she was saying goodbye to something precious. Chitty's mind spun with questions. He wanted to knock on that door. To demand answers. But something told him to wait. To see where else Emeka would go tonight. He followed him back down the stairs into the rain, and toward a dimly lit parking lot near a closed petrol station. Emeka's car stopped under a flickering sodium light. Another car pulled in beside him. The door opened and out stepped Emeka's best man, Obinna. Chitty knew Obinna. He was loud, flashy, always laughing. But tonight he wasn't laughing. His face was hard. Angry. Obinna pulled a small black box from his pocket. A ring box. He shoved it toward Emeka, his voice low and sharp. Just do the swap, Obinna hissed. Emeka stepped back, shaking his head firmly. Never. Obinna's jaw clenched. You're making a mistake. I said no. Chitty's heart raced. Swap what? What ring? What was Obinna trying to make Emeka do? Chitty didn't sleep that night. He sat in his small room, laptop open, phone plugged in. The videos played on repeat. The envelope. The woman. The argument. He made notes, added timestamps, built a folder labeled Truth. His sister deserved better than a man with secrets. She deserved a husband she could trust. And if Emeka was hiding something this big the night before their wedding, what else was he hiding? Just before dawn his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Ask him about the ring. Chidi stared at the screen. Who was this? How did they know what he'd seen? He tried to reply but the message wouldn't go through. The number was blocked. Someone else knew. Someone else was watching Emeka. And they wanted Chidi to act. He saved everything to a USB drive. Printed a few screenshots. By the time the sun rose, he had made his decision. He wouldn't let this wedding happen. Not until his sister knew the truth. Not until Emeka explained himself. He dressed slowly, his chest heavy with purpose. Today was supposed to be a celebration. But Chidi was preparing for war. The wedding hall was beautiful. White flowers covered every surface. Golden ribbons hung from the ceiling. Guests filled the seats, dressed in their finest. Music played softly. Everything looked perfect. But something was wrong. Chidi felt it the moment he walked in. The air was cold, tense. People whispered behind their hands. Eyes darted toward the groom's side. Emeka stood near the altar, hands clasped in front of him, face calm but distant. Too calm. Like a man bracing for a storm. Obinna, the best man, stood beside him, guarding a small velvet box on the table. His eyes scanned the crowd constantly, like a soldier watching for enemies. Adiz hadn't arrived yet. She was still in the bridal room getting ready. Chidi had avoided her all morning. He couldn't look her in the eye. Not yet. Not until this was over. A guest leaned toward another. Something is off, she whispered. Chidi heard it. Others did too. The murmurs spread like wind through dry grass. Everyone could feel it. This wasn't the joyful tension of a wedding. This was something heavier. Something dangerous. Chidi checked his pocket. The USB drive was there. The printed photos. The evidence. He was ready. In the bridal room, Adiz sat in front of the mirror, her makeup perfect, her dress glowing white. She looked like a queen. But her face was tight with worry. Her maid of honor, Ngozi, stood beside her, adjusting the veil. Ngozi was sharp, observant. She had noticed Chidi's behavior all morning. The way he avoided eye contact. The way he kept checking his phone. She found him in the hallway just outside the bridal room. Chidi, she said quietly, pulling him aside. What are you planning? He tried to walk past her, but she blocked his path. I saw you, she continued. You've been recording something. You have evidence of something. What is it? Chidi's hand moved to his pocket protectively. It's nothing you need to worry about. If it involves this wedding, I need to worry. Adiz is my best friend. If you're about to ruin her day based on something you think you saw. I know what I saw. Then verify it first, Ngozi pleaded, her voice urgent. What if you're wrong? What if you humiliate her in front of everyone and you're wrong? Chidi's jaw tightened. He looked at her for a long moment, then walked away without answering. Ngozi watched him go, her stomach sinking. The music changed. The processional began. Guests stood. All eyes turned toward the back of the hall. Adiz appeared at the entrance, radiant, her arm linked with an uncle who would walk her down the aisle. She took her first step. Then another. The crowd smiled. Phones lifted to capture the moment. But then halfway down the aisle, the music cut off. Chidi stepped into the center aisle, blocking the path. His hand was raised. His face was set like stone. Wait, he said loudly. The hall fell silent. Adiz froze, her eyes wide. Emeka turned, his face unreadable. Obinna moved forward, but the MC raised a hand, stopping him. Chidi's voice carried through the hall. Before vows are made, the truth must be told. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones rose higher. The MC stepped forward, uncertain. Brother Chidi, this is not the time. This is exactly the time, Chidi interrupted. He turned to face Emeka directly. You owe my sister the truth. You owe everyone here the truth. Adiz's hands trembled. Chidi, what are you doing? But Chidi wasn't looking at her. He was staring at Emeka, waiting for the man to break. To confess. To prove that Chidi's suspicions were right. The hall held its breath. Chidi pulled out his phone, holding it high for everyone to see. Last night, he began, his voice shaking with anger, I followed this man. I watched him go to a private clinic and hand a nurse an envelope full of cash. The crowd murmured. Adiz's face went pale. Chidi continued. Then he went to an apartment. A woman opened the door. She hugged him. She called him my son. His voice grew louder. And then, in a parking lot, I saw him argue with his best man about swapping a ring. He turned to the crowd. This man is hiding something. Something big. And I will not let my sister marry a liar. The hall erupted in whispers. Some guests looked shocked. Others looked uncomfortable. A few pulled out their own phones, recording. Chitty faced Emeka again. Confess here. Before witnesses. Before God. Tell my sister who that woman is. Tell her what you're hiding. Emeka stood perfectly still. His face was calm, but his eyes were sad. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. He raised a hand and the room quieted. Give me 5 minutes, Emeka said softly. Let me respond. But not with words. With witnesses. Chitty hesitated. What witnesses? Open the doors, Emeka said. The double doors at the back of the hall swung open. 2 figures stepped inside. The first was the nurse from last night, still in her uniform. The second was the woman from the apartment, now wearing a clean blue dress, leaning on a cane. The crowd turned, confused. Adi's breath caught. Emeka walked toward them, his steps slow and deliberate. He gestured for them to come forward. The woman moved carefully, her legs weak but her face full of quiet dignity. Emeka's voice was steady. This is the woman I visited last night. Her name is Mrs. Nena. He turned to Chitty. You asked who she is. Let her tell you herself. Chitty's confidence faltered. He looked at the woman, then at his sister. Adiz was staring at Mrs. Nena with wide, unbelieving eyes. Mrs. Nena stepped forward, clutching a small white scarf. Her voice was soft but clear. My name is Nena, she said, and I am Adiz's mother. The hall exploded. Adiz gasped, covering her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Mama, she whispered. Chitty's legs went weak. This was their mother? The mother who had left them years ago? The mother Adiz refused to speak about? The mother who had disappeared into shame and silence? How was this possible? Mrs. Nena's voice trembled as she spoke, but she didn't look away. I left this family many years ago. I was ashamed. I made mistakes. I hurt people I loved. I couldn't face what I had done, so I ran. Adiz was shaking, tears streaming down her face. Chitty stood frozen, his phone hanging limp in his hand. For years, Mrs. Nena continued, I lived in hiding. I worked small jobs. I survived. But I was sick. Diabetes. High blood pressure. My body was failing. I had no money for treatment. I was ready to die alone. She looked at Emeka, her eyes filled with gratitude. Then this man found me. I don't know how, but he came to my door 6 months ago. He told me Adiz was getting married. He said she needed her mother's blessing, even if she didn't know it yet. The hall was silent. He didn't ask my permission, Mrs. Nena said. He simply started paying. For my treatment. For my medicine. For everything. Month after month. He never told Adiz. He said he would wait until I was strong enough to stand. Strong enough to bless my daughter properly. She turned to Adiz. He brought me back from death so I could see you again. Adiz sobbed openly. Chitty felt his chest tighten, shame flooding through him. The nurse stepped forward, holding a folder. She opened it and placed several papers on the altar table. Stamped receipts. Payment records. Medical bills. All in Emeka's name. These are the payments, the nurse said. Made every month for the past 6 months. The final deposit was made last night so that Mrs. Nena could be discharged today. So she could attend this wedding. So she could stand and bless her daughter. She looked at Chitty. He asked for no credit. No recognition. He told us to keep it private until today. Chitty's hands trembled. He had been so sure. So certain Emeka was hiding something terrible. But this was the secret? The crowd murmured, but now the tone was different. Softer. Warmer. Some women wiped their eyes. But then a voice cut through the moment. Sure. Defensive. Wait. It was Obinna, the best man. He stepped forward, his face tight. This doesn't explain everything. What about the ring? The crowd turned to him. Obinna pointed at Emeka. What about the argument we had last night? What about the swap you refused? Emeka's face darkened. Chitty's suspicion flared again. What about the ring? Ngozi, the maid of honor, moved quickly toward the altar table where the ring box sat. She reached for it but paused. Her fingers hovered. Why, she said slowly, are there 2 ring boxes? Ngozi lifted a second identical velvet box from behind the flower arrangement. The crowd leaned forward. Emeka's eyes widened. Obinna went rigid. Why 2? Ngozi repeated, holding both boxes up. The MC stepped closer, confused. Best man, can you explain? Obinna's jaw clenched. He reached for the boxes but Ngozi pulled them back. Not yet, she said firmly. Open them first. The MC nodded. He opened the first box. Inside was a beautiful gold ring with a sparkling diamond. The crowd murmured approval. Then he opened the second box. Inside was an identical ring. Same design. Same size. But something about it looked off. Duller. Less brilliant. An older man in the front row stood up. I'm a jeweler, he announced. May I? The MC handed him both rings. The jeweler pulled a small magnifying lens from his pocket and examined each stone carefully under the light. His face changed. He looked up shocked. This one, he said, holding the second ring, is fake. The stone is glass. The hall erupted. Adiz gasped. Emeka turned to Obinna, his face filled with betrayal. You brought a fake ring to my wedding? Obinna's face flushed red. I didn't. Then how did it get here? Ngozi demanded. Obinna stammered. Someone must have planted it. This is a setup. But the crowd wasn't convinced. Eyes narrowed. Whispers grew sharper. Obinna's panic was visible now. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He pulled out his phone, fingers shaking. Wait. I have proof. Proof that Emeka isn't who you think he is. He fumbled with his phone, then held it up toward the projector screen. Play this, he demanded. The MC hesitated but complied. The screen lit up with shaky video footage. It showed Emeka entering the apartment building from last night. Then it cut to him hugging Mrs. Nena. The audio was muffled, but you could hear her say, God bless you, my son. Obinna's voice rose triumphantly. See? He's been hiding a whole other relationship. Who calls someone my son, unless they're hiding something? He's lying to all of you. The crowd shifted uneasily. Doubt crept back into their faces. Chidi felt his earlier suspicions return. Maybe he wasn't wrong. Maybe there was more to this. Adiz looked at Emeka, confusion clouding her tear-streaked face. Emeka. But Emeka said nothing. He just looked at Obinna with deep sadness. Ngozi stepped forward again. That video is cropped, she said loudly. Obinna turned on her. What? It's edited, Ngozi repeated. She pulled out her own phone. I have the full footage. With audio. From the hallway camera. Want to see it? Obinna's face went white. Ngozi airdropped the file to the projector. The screen changed. Now the full video played. Longer. Uncut. The same scene appeared, Emeka entering the apartment. Mrs. Nena opening the door. But this time the audio was clear. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Nena said, her voice trembling. I prayed for this day. I prayed that Adiz would find a man like you. A man who doesn't hold my sins against her. Emeka's voice was gentle. You're her mother. She needs your blessing. Even if she doesn't know it yet. God bless you, my son, Mrs. Nena said, hugging him. Not by blood but by love. You are like a son to me for what you've done. The video continued. Mrs. Nena stepped back, tears in her eyes. Will she forgive me? She will, Emeka said. When she's ready. The video ended. The hall was silent. Then, slowly, people began to understand. The hug wasn't romantic. The words weren't suspicious. It was gratitude. It was blessing. It was a mother thanking the man who had saved her life so she could see her daughter again. The MC's voice was firm. Context changes everything. All eyes turned to Obinna. His face was pale, his hands shaking. He tried to speak, but no words came. Chidi felt his stomach drop. He had been used. Someone had been feeding him half-truths. Someone wanted this wedding to fail. And that someone was standing right there. Emeka stepped forward, his voice calm but heavy. Obinna, how did you get that video? Obinna stammered. I found it. Someone sent it to me. Who? I don't know. It was anonymous. Then how did you know to use it? Emeka's voice grew harder. How did you know to bring a fake ring? How did you know to push me to swap it? Obinna took a step back. I was trying to help you. I thought. You thought what? Emeka's eyes were blazing now. You thought you could sabotage my wedding? You thought you could humiliate me in front of everyone? He pulled out his own phone and handed it to the MC. Show them. The MC connected the phone to the projector. Emails appeared on the screen. Financial records. Bank transfers. Messages between Obinna and someone marked CFO. The MC read aloud. Money missing from business account. Unauthorized transfers. Signed, Obinna. The crowd gasped. Obinna's face turned red, then white. That's not. Those are fake. They're not fake, Emeka said quietly. You've been stealing from my business for months. I found out 2 weeks ago. I confronted you. You begged me not to report you. You said you'd pay it back. Obina's voice cracked. I was going to. But instead, Emeka continued, you planned this. You planned to ruin my wedding. To make me look guilty. To distract everyone from your theft. The hall erupted in angry murmurs. Obina looked around wildly trapped. Obina's voice rose in desperation. He's lying. He's the one who's fake. He's buying love. Paying for a mother-in-law so he looks like a hero. It's all an act. But before anyone could respond, an elderly man in the front row stood up. His name was Uncle Festus, a respected elder in the community. His voice was steady and commanding. Young man, Uncle Festus said looking at Obina, you speak of buying love. But I know this groom. I know his character. He turned to the crowd. 3 years ago, Emeka found out his business partner was embezzling funds. Instead of pressing charges, he forgave the man and gave him a second chance. That man is now running a successful shop in Onitsha. Uncle Festus pointed at Emeka. This man hid his kindness to protect others. He didn't seek credit. He didn't boast. He simply did what was right. He turned back to Obina. And you? You repay his trust with theft. With lies. With sabotage. The crowd murmured in agreement. Obina's last defense crumbled. He opened his mouth then closed it. There was nothing left to say. Ngozi held up the 2 ring boxes again. So which ring were you planning to use? The real one or the fake? Obina didn't answer. He just stared at the floor. The jeweler stepped forward again. Let me examine both under better light. The jeweler took both rings to a side table where the light was brightest. He used his magnifying lens, turning each stone slowly, checking angles, testing hardness. The hall watched in silence. After a long moment he looked up. His face was grave. This stone, he said, holding the second ring, is glass. Cheap glass. If this had been used in the ceremony, it would have been discovered within days. Maybe even hours. He looked at Obina. Whoever planned this wanted the groom to be humiliated publicly. Wanted people to think he was cheap. A fraud. Obina said nothing. His hands were shaking now. The MC turned to the crowd. Does anyone know how the second ring got here? An usher raised his hand nervously. I saw something this morning. A courier delivered a package to the best man at the entrance. Early. Before most guests arrived. The MC's eyes narrowed. A courier? Yes, sir. I didn't think much of it. I thought it was something for the wedding. Ngozi moved quickly to the entrance. She spoke to the security guard, who pulled up the entry camera footage on a small monitor. Moments later she returned, holding the monitor. Here, she said, showing the screen. 7 a.m. Obina receives a box from a courier. Same size as a ring box. Obina lunged forward, trying to grab the monitor, but 2 groomsmen blocked him. That's private. You can't. You just tried to destroy a wedding, Ngozi said coldly. Nothing about you is private anymore. The MC spoke into the microphone. Obina, you have one chance to tell the truth. Did you bring that fake ring intentionally? Obina's chest heaved. His face twisted with anger and shame. Yes, he shouted. Yes, I brought it. I was going to swap it during the ceremony. I wanted him to look like a fool in front of everyone. The crowd gasped. Adiz covered her mouth. Emeka closed his eyes, his face pained. Why? The MC asked. Why would you do this to your friend? Because he fired me. Obina screamed. Because he found out I took money from the business and he was going to report me. I needed to ruin him first. I needed everyone to think he was the liar, not me. His voice broke. He was going to destroy my reputation, my career, everything. So I decided to destroy his wedding, his perfect image. Let him feel what it's like to lose everything in front of everyone. Uncle Festus stood again, his voice sharp. So you chose revenge over repentance. You chose sabotage over honesty. Obina said nothing. He just stood there, shaking, defeated. The MC turned to Emeka. What do you want to do? Emeka looked at Obina for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but firm. I want him to leave. And I want the police called. Theft is theft. Sabotage is sabotage. 2 groomsmen escorted Obina toward the exit. He didn't resist. As he passed Chidi, he glanced at him. You almost helped me, he muttered. You almost finished what I started. Chidi felt his stomach turn. As Obina was being led away, he stumbled. The fake ring box fell from his pocket. It hit the marble floor with a sharp crack. The glass stone rolled out, glittering cheaply under the lights. Phones captured everything. Guests gasped. Children pointed. The fake stone rolled across the aisle, finally stopping at Mrs. Nenna's feet. She bent slowly, picked it up, and held it up to the light. Her voice was soft but carried through the hall. Glass can look like diamond if the light is dim, but truth always shines brighter in the end. She handed the stone to the MC, who placed it on the altar table as evidence. An elderly woman in the back row stood and spoke, her voice strong. God doesn't sleep. He sees what is hidden. He brings what is dark into the light. The crowd murmured agreement. Someone began clapping softly. Then another. Then more. The applause grew, not for Obina's downfall, but for the truth being revealed. Adiz was crying now, but not from sadness. She looked at Emeka, her eyes full of something deeper than before. Gratitude. Understanding. Well, but Emeka raised his hand gently. Wait, he said. There's one more thing. The crowd quieted. Chidi's heart sank. What more could there be? Emeka turned to the MC. Please? Open the sealed envelope. The MC walked to the altar and picked up a large sealed envelope that had been sitting untouched beside the flowers. He opened it carefully and pulled out a stack of handwritten letters tied with a faded blue ribbon. He looked at Emeka, confused. What are these? Letters, Emeka said. From Mrs. Nenna to Adiz. Written over the past 10 years. Apologies. Explanations. Well, she wrote them but never sent them. She was too ashamed. Mrs. Nenna stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. I wrote to you every year on your birthday. On Christmas. On the day I left. I poured my heart into those pages. But I never had the courage to send them. Emeka's voice was gentle. I found them in her apartment. She kept them in a box under her bed. I asked if I could bring them to you today. She said yes. He handed the stack of letters to Adiz. Her hands trembled as she took them. She looked at the first one. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. Tears blurred her vision. Mama, she whispered. Mrs. Nenna reached out and touched her daughter's face. I'm sorry, my child. I'm so sorry for leaving. For the pain. For the silence. But I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. Adiz collapsed into her mother's arms, sobbing. The hall watched in silence, many wiping their own eyes. Chidi stood frozen, his earlier confidence shattered. He had almost destroyed this. Almost ruined this moment of healing. Chidi walked slowly toward the altar, his legs heavy. He stopped in front of Emeka. The hall watched. His sister watched. His mother watched. Then slowly Chidi knelt. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I was wrong. I thought I was protecting my sister, but I was acting out of pride. Out of suspicion. I didn't trust you and I should have. He pulled out his phone and held it up. I recorded everything last night. I built a case against you. I was ready to destroy this wedding. And I was wrong about all of it. Tears ran down his face. I'm sorry, Emeka. I'm sorry, Adiz. I almost ruined the most beautiful thing in your life because I was too proud to ask questions. Too proud to trust. Emeka reached down and lifted Chidi to his feet. His voice was steady. Protection that misfires is still love. You were trying to guard your sister's heart. I understand that. I forgive you. Adiz stepped forward and hugged her brother tightly. I forgive you too, she whispered. The crowd applauded softly. Uncle Festus nodded in approval. Ngozi smiled, relief washing over her face. But Emeka wasn't finished. He turned to the MC. There's one last document. In my jacket pocket. A lawyer prepared it. Please read it aloud. The MC pulled out a folded legal document and began to read. The hall leaned forward, listening carefully. The MC's voice grew serious as he read. This is a legal waiver signed 2 days ago. Emeka Okafor hereby rejects the inheritance clause set forth by his late uncle's estate. The crowd murmured, confused. The MC continued. The clause required that Emeka cancel his wedding to Adiz and marry a woman chosen by the family council in exchange for receiving 60% ownership of the family business and properties valued at over 50 million naira. Gasps filled the hall. 50 million naira. That was generational wealth. Life-changing money. The MC kept reading. Emeka Okafor declined this offer and signed away his claim to the inheritance. In its place, he established a scholarship fund in the name of Chief Isa Okonkwo, Adiz's late father, to provide education for orphan children in Anambra State. The hall erupted. Adiz's hands flew to her mouth. Tears poured down her face. Her father's name. A scholarship in her father's name. Uncle Festus stood again, his voice shaking with emotion. This man gave up a fortune to marry the woman he loves. He honored his bride's father in the most meaningful way possible. And he did it in silence. The MC held up the signed document. Filed and notarized. Legal and binding. Adiz turned to Emeka, her voice barely a whisper. You gave up everything? Emeka smiled softly. I didn't give up anything. I chose everything that mattered. The applause was thunderous now. People stood. Some wept openly. Even the men wiped their eyes. Mrs. Nena stepped forward, her legs still weak but her spirit strong. She stood in front of her daughter, placing both hands on Adiz's head. The hall fell silent. My daughter, she said, her voice trembling but clear. I bless you. I bless this union. I bless this man who carried my shame so I could stand here today. I bless this marriage with every breath I have left. Her voice grew stronger. May your home never lack mercy. May your children know the love I failed to give you. May your husband's kindness be returned to him 100-fold. She turned to Emeka. And you, my son, not by blood but by grace, may God bless you for seeing worth where others saw failure. May you never know the kind of loss you saved me from. Tears streamed down faces throughout the hall. Even the photographer was crying behind his camera. The nurse stepped forward and spoke quietly to the MC, who nodded and took the microphone again. There's more, the MC announced. The nurse has informed me that over the past 6 months, Emeka also paid for the treatment of 3 other patients at the clinic, all under Adiz's name. Women who had no family. No resources. He told the hospital to record the donations as coming from Adiz's Blessing Fund. Adiz's knees buckled. Emeka caught her, holding her steady. You did all this? She whispered. All this time? I wanted you to be a blessing before you even knew it, Emeka said softly. I wanted your name to mean hope to people who had none. Mrs. Nena raised her hands to heaven. God has balanced the scales. What the enemy meant for evil, God turned to glory. The applause was deafening now. Adiz clung to Emeka, sobbing into his chest. Chidi stood to the side, humbled and grateful. Ngozi wiped her eyes, smiling. Uncle Festus's voice boomed across the hall. Let the vows be said. Let this marriage be sealed. The real rings were brought forward, examined, verified, and blessed. The fake ring and its glass stone were placed in a box as evidence for the police. Obinna was gone, escorted away by authorities. The hall had transformed from cold tension to warm celebration. Emeka and Adiz stood before the altar, hands joined. The officiant smiled and spoke the ancient words. Do you take this woman? I do, Emeka said, his voice steady and sure. Do you take this man? I do, Adiz whispered, her voice breaking with joy. The rings were exchanged. The real rings. Symbols of real love, tested and proven. The kiss was gentle, and the hall erupted in cheers, applause, and ululation. As the couple turned to face their guests, sunlight broke through the windows, flooding the hall with golden light. Mrs. Nena stood beside them, her hand on her daughter's shoulder, tears streaming down her face. Chidi caught Ngozi's eye across the room. She smiled at him, not mockingly but kindly. A look that said, you learned something today. He smiled back, a small, humble smile that said, I did. The couple walked down the aisle together, into the bright daylight waiting outside. Behind them, the hall buzzed with joy, with laughter, with the sound of a story that would be told for generations. The narrator's voice echoed softly as the doors closed. Pride misreads love. Patience reveals truth. And God in His time always balances the scales. Remember this. What you see in shadows may be glory waiting for light. Judge slowly. Love deeply. And trust that truth, like the sun, cannot stay hidden forever. The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please share your thoughts in the comments section and tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you'll know when we upload our next story.